Hello, my name is Nicole Tomasic, and for my historical context presentation, I did paid employment for slaves. Slaves enjoyed very few minimal benefits that would go beyond housing, food, and clothing. On some plantations, slaves were able to earn small amounts of cash if they were telling fortunes or even fiddled at dances during that time. On the other hand, slaves could sell poultry, meats, liquor, and peddled handcraft materials. They were willing to do anything to earn any extra cash. In other cases, slaves could earn money if they had a particular skill that they would perform that other slaves couldn't perform during that time. That was another way they could receive some money. And also, some slave masters even were using cash as an incentive to make their slaves work even harder than they already did and have a more productive work ethic, I would say. And depending on in the upper South, cities and manufacturing, and depending on what areas they were from, and also depending on the different conditions of food and treatment, they had a system called the hiring out system. And here, most slaves were hired out of work to work for others, and basically receive a bonus pay and earn wages that could be given to them that would go beyond their basic work day. And this would be compared to us of having our own work day and going and working overtime, but we would get paid for our work day and then a bonus pay for our overtime. But for them, they would just receive the bonus pay. Another example is some slaves were allowed to hire themselves out, which meant that they could give their masters a monthly fee, and keep anything that they earned for that amount extra would be kept for them. And also, as I mentioned before, money was given depending on if the slaves were skilled and unskilled, and if they were unskilled labor workers in the early 19th centuries, they could command to around of $100. But if they were skilled workers during this time, or during the late 1850s, they could command around $500. And skilled workers can be cabinet maker, or for example, it would be a cabinet maker, and cabinet makers can earn as much as white men during that time. And this was very few slaves could do this, and some of them can even afford to outbuy their bondage. But as I mentioned before, it was very unlikely for them to happen. And also, the slaves can earn extra money. Also, as I mentioned before, if what their masters were, how well their masters wanted to treat them, if they treated with any benefits at all. An example of this would be, since Linda worked very hard on Mr. Flint's plantation, and she basically managed the entire plantation because he didn't want to hire a superintendent, and he didn't know anything about it. So all the responsibility was on her, and she even made clothes for slaves. She did anything that was asked of her during that time. And another example would be on Linda's plantation. There was corn from hand mills that were made from different. Basically, these slaves were grinding out their own corn on hand mills, and around her plantation, they had different Monday nights were their busiest nights. So basically, this was like slaves' weekly allowances of food, and they would receive around 3 pounds of meat. And if children were above 12, they would receive half of that amount of meat than women would do during that time. So basically, their benefits of getting paid were very minimal. And if they were skilled and unskilled, and just who they worked for, and if they were willing to go for that hiring out system or be able to pay themselves out, that was a way that slaves can be paid during this time.